We often wonder what would be the ideal trait that a leader should have. Right? If you want a leader, what should he do? What should the leader embody? What traits do they need as a necessity for effective leadership? In this week's Parsha, we learn about Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest leader of our history. And there's one very interesting thing that we know he was raised in the lap of luxury. He was brought up by Pharaoh's daughter, and as his brethren were being oppressed and enslaved, he was growing up in Pharaoh's daughter's palace. And one day, the Torah tells us, Vayar basivlosam, he saw the suffering of his brethren. He saw it. Rashi says he gave his eyes and he gave his heart to their cause. He empathized. He felt their pain in a very serious way. Later on, and therefore he was moved to act, and he stood up for this fellow Jew who was being brutalized by an Egyptian taskmaster. Later on in the Parsha, as we see the story of the burning bush, when Moshe is summoned to the burning bush, and he sees he looks, the Torah tells us, he looks at the burning bush, and the Torah says that God sees him look. God sees him look. So the simple reading of that would be that God sees him look at the bush. But the perhaps deeper lesson there is, what did God see him look at? God saw him look at the suffering of his brethren. Immediately after God looked at him and observed him seeing the suffering of his brethren, that is specifically when God summoned him and he called him to lead the Jewish people, to bring them out of the bondage of Egypt and into the promised land eventually, or at the cusp of the promised land. So it would appear that empathy is a critical trait of leadership. It's a critical value that we hold dear as Jews. When we see somebody else suffering, it is incumbent upon us to show them that we feel their pain, to share their burden, and to show our love for them. Have a beautiful, beautiful Shabbos.